So let's talk about retrospectives now. So as I mentioned, you could signal things to put in the retrospective. So maybe we saw an anomaly in our data, right, in our cycle times. Maybe we decided, hey, anytime we have backward flow and QA has to give something back to development, that shouldn't happen if we're doing ATDD and BDD and all these things. So we could have another explicit policy that would say, hey, go put something else on the retrospective board. So, or maybe we discovered, wow, we have an external team dependency that we didn't know about, and we should have done, we want to retrospect on that because next time we might want to go back and look at all those cards in our product backlog and make sure that we understand the external team's dependencies that we weren't aware of. Or I went to a meeting and I brought something back from a meeting, and whatever happened in that meeting, maybe we should delay working on some things because there's something else going on in another department and they're not going to be able to help us as fast as we thought they could. So let's just block all those cards and move on to the next highest value thing we can work on. So I like having policies to trigger retrospective because, again, if I wait to the end of the sprint and try to remember everything that happened that could have impacted us, it's hard to remember everything. It's just too much going on. So you also have your normal retrospective, just how could we be a better team, right? What worked, what didn't work. We had a new person on the team that's working well, so you have to have that positive thing. So now the question is, when do you work on retrospectives, right? I could have limits. I could say, wow, you know what? 4 things popped up new in this last 2 weeks. Are these things more important than the other things that we were trying to improve on? Maybe they aren't, right? Or maybe it's the same thing and it's just really impeding us and we just need to say, wow, we already had that on a retrospective board. We just really need to find time to get that issue resolved so that it's not blocking or slowing down our flow. So I like this a lot because I go to a lot of retrospectives and we never take improvement time. It could have been that whenever we were in our whip, right, that whenever I stopped coding, because I had to help go to QA, because QA got jammed up, maybe I instead go over the retrospective board and I work on something there. And I go up to Lynn and I say, hey, listen, do you want me to help you with QA? Because you guys seem like you're backed up. And you're like, no, I was out sick. I'm back. You probably don't want to be around me. Maybe you can go work on an improvement item, right? And it's okay to do that. To be honest with you, most teams don't like doing that. They actually feel guilty when they aren't doing product delivery and they're just going to go do something fun, maybe fun on a retrospective board. So I like to reserve time to work on retrospectives. Typically, a couple hours on a Friday is a good time, and we just stop flow on all product development, and we say, all right, everybody on the team has to do something to improve, and then they also have to show and tell it. So when you do your show and tells, don't just show and tell your product delivery, but show that you're actually improving as a team and working on this. So that has to be a team agreement, right? The team agrees on when you're going to do improvement things. But again, most teams do retrospectives, talk about things, and don't do it. It's also a good time to adjust your policies, right? So maybe it's just an awareness thing. We just need to put another policy on this column so that it doesn't happen again. So there's lots of ways to do this, but I kind of like a Kanban type retrospective board. I still schedule them because we need that cadence. I think retrospectives in general are the most important practice, right? If you can't talk as a team about what's working and what's not working, so you have to force that cadence so that you do that. So let's talk about cadence, okay? So when you do Scrum, right, there's a close and open ceremony. So if you recall from the Scrum session, right, at the end of a close, you do a show and tell, you review velocity, you usually adjust your velocity, right? If we're going forward, you do your retrospective, then you target what you're going to do in the next 2 weeks. Based on that velocity, you review the cards and you sign up for the work. Okay, so now that we're doing Kanban, right, we still want to do some of these ceremonies, okay, but flow can be continuous. I could actually trigger a show and tell. I could say, you know what, I'm going to do a show and tell every time we get to 5. We're going to ring a bell and we're going to celebrate 5 things as a team, right? And we're going to shoot a video of that show and tell maybe, and we're going to send it off to our product owners. So I could trigger it, or because I've seen show and tells get really long to the point that because we've got so much done that it's kind of annoying. I could even have an explicit policy down here that, hey, John's new. He doesn't trust this Agile stuff yet that we do. So every time we get 3 cards done that are blue, John's going to personally go and get that product owner and bring them over to actually see to have a private show and tell. So they're not going to be just the product owner and a big show and tell. We're just going to invite them to their own mini show and tell until we build up respect. And finally, they'll say, well, can I just attend the big show and tell so I don't have to attend the small one? Right, so that happens a lot, and so that's a good team policy. to have, right? Is when you have a new customer, is give them that extra attention, right? So that they actually understand how you work and how this whole Agile, lean, Kanban thing works, right? What's changed, right, with Kanban is that, we don't really have iteration planning meetings like we did, because we're going to have triggers to actually schedule backlog grooming, right? We're going to start seeing the work end, so we can actually trigger when are we going to, when are we going to stop and start decomposing the next set of stories. We're working in first out order. I'm not picking the sexiest card to work on in the sprint, and the boring cards are always getting not done last because everybody picked the fun work. We replaced velocity with cycle time. Right? We're going to signal certain events and certain ceremonies that we need to do, but we're still going to have scheduled events. People will think, okay, well, what's your thought on Scrum versus Kanban? I really don't care, right? The Agile Manifesto is really about Uncover Better because it's on software. So I like to say, do Scrum, do Kanban. I personally think that Scrumban is the answer. I think the team needs cadence and work needs flow. So you need to have that discipline of, I'm going to do my reviews of my data. I'm going to do daily stand-ups. I'm going to do show and tells. I'm going to do retrospectives. Those are important feedback loops, okay? But work needs to flow. Everything can't happen in 2 weeks, right? Backlog grooming, design thinking, user interviews, right? Persona interviews, getting things ready for production, working with your training, your deployment teams, your DevOps cycles, right? There's a lot of stages that just can't possibly happen in 2 weeks. So I think that looking at the flow holistically, from ideation all the way through production, just seemed to make sense. It's logical, and that's the flow piece, is how do we build T-shaped people and reduce dependencies. Okay, so that's Scrumban.